leaders of China and India say they've taken steps to deepen trust between their countries after years of tension, including a border dispute. Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi met at a regional summit in Tianjin.
South Korea has said it will stop the broadcast of a propaganda radio programme into North Korea for the first time in 15 years, as it seeks better relations with its neighbour.
India's Prime Minister says the country will begin industrial-scale production of locally made semiconductors by the end of the year. Narendra Modi said the aim was to make India a global centre of microchip innovation.
The leaders of China, Russia and North Korea attended a massive military parade in Beijing. It's their first public appearance together. China's President Xi Jinping said the world faced a choice between peace and war.
A US federal court jury has ordered Google to pay around $425 million over privacy violations. The court argued Google collected data from users who'd switched off a tracking feature in their account.
475 people have been arrested by US immigration agents in a raid at a large Hyundai facility in Georgia. The authorities said they were investigating unlawful employment at the South Korean automaker's complex. Most of those detained were Korean.
The South Korean foreign minister is due to head to the United States to help secure the return of hundreds of Korean workers held in an immigration raid on a car battery plant. US officials said many of them were there illegally. The Ford Motor Company is recalling almost 1.5 million vehicles in the United States. US traffic safety officials say there's an increased risk of accidents because of problems with rear-view cameras.
Poland's Prime Minister says NATO pilots helped shoot down at least 3 Russian drones in his country's airspace overnight. Donald Tusk has made the rare decision to invoke Article 4 of the alliance's treaty, calling for urgent talks. A senior Russian diplomat in Poland said Warsaw had not provided evidence that the drones were of Russian origin.
Jaguar Land Rover says its factories in the UK will remain closed until next week as it continues to deal with the fallout from a major cyber attack. The Indian-owned car company normally builds about 1,000 cars a day at the sites.
For the first time in Brazilian history, a former president has been convicted of crimes against democracy. The Supreme Court has sentenced Jair Bolsonaro to 27 years in prison for attempting a coup following his election defeat in 2022.
South Korea says it's investigating possible human rights violations during the detention of hundreds of Korean workers by the US immigration authorities. They returned home last week following the raid at an electric vehicle battery plant in the state of Georgia.
Donald Trump has filed a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. The libel case accuses the newspaper of publishing false, malicious and defamatory articles which had damaged his personal and business reputation. The paper has not yet commented. Donald Trump is in Britain for his second state visit as US President. Arriving at the US Ambassador's residence in London, he said the UK was a great place that warmed his heart. King Charles is due to host Mr Trump for a state banquet at Windsor Castle with an unusually large military parade and a carriage procession.
President Lula of Brazil has warned that steep US tariffs on goods from his country will drive up prices for American consumers. He told the BBC that exports of coffee and beef would become more expensive.
New visa rules for skilled workers in the United States come into force on Sunday. Earlier officials clarified that the Trump administration's move to increase the fee to $100,000 would apply only to new requests.
The North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has suggested he's willing to negotiate with Donald Trump on condition that America does not insist Pyongyang gives up its nuclear weapons. South Korea's president has told the BBC he'd support a deal that saw the North freeze its nuclear program.
The CEO of the South Korean lithium battery manufacturer Arisel has been sentenced to 15 years in prison over a fire that killed 23 employees last year. The court found that Park Sun-kwon had failed to provide proper safety measures.
President Trump has dramatically shifted his tone on the war in Ukraine, saying Kiev could win back all of the territory it has lost and dismissing Russia's military as a paper tiger. Following talks with President Zelensky at the UN in New York, Mr. Trump said Russia was in big economic trouble. The Kremlin has dismissed the comments.
Officials in Indonesia say more than 1,000 children have suffered food poisoning this week after eating school lunches. The president launched the multi-billion-dollar free meals project earlier this year.
Celebrations are taking place in England to mark the 200th anniversary of the birth of the modern railway. It was the first time passengers travelled on a ticketed journey on a public railway, on a train running at around 25 kilometres an hour.
The German airline group Lufthansa is cutting 4,000 jobs as it sets new targets to improve profitability. Most of the redundancies will be among administrative rather than operational staff. Lufthansa's shares rose on the news.
시청해 주셔서 감사합니다. 다음 시간에 뵙겠습니다.